Next, you can give the subheading blind spot. We have all covered all parts regarding the eye. Next is blind spot. Now, blind spot, I have already explained it once. When we see the structure of a retina itself, that is innermost layer of the eye, it is retina, and we saw that retina is composed of two kinds of cell, namely rods and cones. But in the junction where optic nerve comes, suppose this is the back region of the eye. So here you can see optic nerve coming, and there is a junction where optic nerve and retina meets. And this junction, even though all other regions are packed with rods and cones, in the junction where optic nerve and retina meet, you will not see any rods and cones. This region you call it as blind spot. Now, what is the significance of blind spot? Any image which is formed on the blind spot, you will not be able to recognize it or perceive it. So that is the significance. So blind spot is that region in the retina on which even though image formation occurs, you will not still be able to see the object. So write it down. It is a point at which the optic nerve leaves the eye, or I can say it is a point at which optic nerve meets with the retina, or in simple sense, it is a junction of retina and optic nerve. Now, second point, it contains no rods and cones. So the image formed at this point will not be visible. So the image formed at this point will not be visible, or visible in the sense it will not be sent to the brain will not process it, you will not be able to see it. Now, there are numerous activities to realize the blind spot of your case. And one such activity we have already seen in past in class 8. If you remember, just to demonstrate the presence of blind spot in our eyes, we can mark cross and a 0 on a paper with some kind of separation between them. Now, what you have to do is you have to close one of your eye. You can see alphabet O is aligned with your left eye, whereas alphabet H is aligned with your right eye. Now, what you do is close left eye, which is aligned to letter O. You have to bring the screen closer. So at certain distance, when there is a certain separation between the screen and your eye, you will not be able to see one of the letters. So that is the simplest idea, even though both the letters are visible to one eye at all other points, but there will be a certain point or certain distance up to which one of the letter will not be visible to you. So that is a simplest demonstration of a blind spot. You can all try it out. Just take a paper, or you can bring the screen, do it later. Fine. So our brain has this effect known as blind spot. Just remember that. Next, to give the subheading persistence of vision. Next, to give the subheading persistence of vision. Normally, there is eye lens and you have eye. Now, when you see an image, the light from the image will strike the eye. It will form an image on the retina. Now, whatever image is formed on the retina, this image will be remaining there for 1/16th of a second. So, whenever you see an object, suppose here an object O is present, when you see this object, an image is found on the retina. And on the retina, this image will be remaining there for this much time interval. Suppose I show this object and suddenly I remove it. Now there is no object. If there is no object, there will be no light rays coming from this object. But still, that perception of the image will remain in the retina or retained in the brain for this much time. The conclusion is that suppose you saw the alphabet A. Now, even if I remove this alphabet A, still your brain will make you to see this alphabet A for this much amount of time, even after the object is being removed. Got the idea? Whenever you see a sight, even after the sight is taken away, or if no light is coming from that side, still the image of that sight will be retained in the retina, or I can say in the brain, for 1/16th of a second more. This phenomenon, we call it as persistence of vision. Now, due to this effect that is happening with reference to our retina and brain, there are a lot of illusions possible. And it has given rise to all the great movies that you have enjoyed all these years, all the animated or whatever kind of motion pictures you can think of. It all works on the simplest idea of persistence of vision. So let us write the definition. Write down. It is a time for which the sensation of an object continues in the eye. It is a time for which the sensation of an object continues in the eye. Here, when I say continues in the eye, even after the object is being removed, this sensation will be remaining. And that is a very short span. So you cannot normally realize, because 1/16th of a second means even very less fraction of second. It is very difficult for us to consciously understand, but we can demonstrate it with a number of examples. Written?
Yes.
Okay. Time interval noted down, very, very important. It is about 1/16th of a second. The persistence of vision is almost 1/16th of a second. Do you know what is the name of this disk called? What is the name of this disk? This is known as Newton's color disk. Newton's color disk. It is a very ingenious thing brought up by Newton to prove that white light is composed of 7 colors. Initially, people thought white light was a pure form of light. There is no constituent particles. But we'll later study Newton played with prisms. When he passed white light to a prism, he observed that a phenomenon known as splitting of colors. What is the name of that phenomenon? When you pass white light through a prism, it will split its component colors. It is known as dispersion. So Newton wanted to prove this effect by using another simplest object. So he came up with this ingenious idea of a color disk. So you can see a number of colors are aligned one next to the other. Now what Newton did is that he started to rotate this disk at a high speed. And when this starts rotating, you might no more see the colors distinct as now. You only see a white kind of shade. So if I rotate it, you can see now. So when this starts to rotate, no more the distinct colors are visible. Only you can see almost it is white. So this is also due to persistence of vision, because all those images, suppose if I note down, now your eye is recording the image of orange, red, green, all in the brain. Now when I rotate it, all this image will be still in your brain and they will coexist at the same moment. And if all the colors coexist at the same moment, you will see nothing but white color. This is the simplest experiment for two things. One is persistence of vision, and second one, you can prove that white light is composed of 7 colors. Now, apart from that, I already told it is also a principle for all the movies or motion pictures that you consider. So here you can see there are 16 photographs of a person riding a horse. Now, if these 16 photographs are played one after the other, you kind of perceive that the person is continuously moving. So this is also an example for persistence of vision. Again, I am repeating, here we have displayed 16 photographs of the horse moving forward. But if I play these photographs one after the other continuously, you will perceive that it is continuously in motion. So I can conclude this is also a type of illusion, because our brain has this particular defect to retain every image that it sees in it for 1/16th of a second. And you can count the number of frames here. Here there are 16 photographs. So in 1 second, you are being displayed 16 photographs, or each photograph you will use the term known as frame. So I can conclude 16 frames are being displayed in 1 second. That leads to the term FPS. Those are playing games and all very much familiar with FPS, or in photography. It means frames per second. Very important idea. Even all the modern day movies that you make, we have fixed a standard for the FPS. It is almost 24. So all the movie camera that shoots different scenes, they have to shoot the particular scene in 24 FPS, because it is the most acceptable frame for normal vision. So this is an industry standard, 24 FPS. So that is all about persistence of vision. You can count a number of examples. Other common examples, those who are interested in drawing might be already know. The case of Flipbook. Even in Play Store, you will get a lot of apps similar to Flipbook where you can draw continuous images, and I turn the pages on in a continuous manner, you will see a seamless motion. So these are all examples for persistence of vision. Now moving on, there is a question, why do we have 2 eyes for vision? So just note it down. Question, why do we have 2 eyes for vision? Now 2 eyes will generally give specifically 2 benefits. The first benefit is that if you have a single eye, the angle of vision is almost limited to 150 degrees. That is, if you open your one eye and try to see the world around, the angle up to which you can perceive is almost 150 degrees. Whereas if you open 2 eyes and see, you can have an additional information of 30 degrees. So the field of vision is almost 180 degrees. So we can conclude by having 2 eyes, you have a wider field of view. So that is the first advantage of having 2 eyes. Write it down. With one eye, there is a field of vision of 150 degrees, whereas if there are 2 eyes, you can see up to 180 degrees. This itself gives survival advantage. So suppose you see 2 animals approaching from the sides, you might be able to see it. In some animals, if you notice, they have the eyes almost in this fashion. So they have even more wider range of vision. For animals having eyes located at this particular fashion. Now, second reason we have already discussed during the initial part of the chapter, because of two eyes only you can perceive depth. So depth is a very important idea. You can understand or perceive depth due to the presence of two eyes. Now, technically, this has another name, that is eye. Our eye works on the principle of parallax. Parallax. Suppose this two image. You are holding your thumb in front of a building. Now, you are only looking at this side through your left eye. Now, if you close your left eye and only look at the same building or compare the same building with reference to your thumb using your right eye, you might see an image like this. You can readily point your fingers. That is, take any of your finger, point it to one object. When looking with one eye, you will see the object at a certain distance. When looking with the other eye, you will see the object slightly displaced. This effect we call it as parallax. Or if you consider the diagram, if an object is at a far distance, here the object is at a far distance. You can see one eye sees the object here, the other eye sees the object there. So there is an angle of separation between there. This we call it as parallactic angle. Now here, this angle is very less. So if an object is at a far distance, the parallactic angle formed between the eyes is very less. Now if I bring the object closer, you can see the angle increased in this point. So always both of the eyes, the angle increased. Yeah. So both of the eyes will always form an image on the retina and they will calculate this angle. So whenever the angle is very less, the brain will understand that the object is at a far distance. Whereas if parallactic angle is very high, the brain will conclude that object is nothing but at a nearby distance. So this is the mechanism by which the brain gives you a perception of depth by calculating the parallactic angle. So conclusion is, why do we have two eyes for vision? Mainly two reasons. First one, it will give a wider field of view. Second reason, it gives a perception of depth. Now, we need to understand the next term known as power of accommodation. So to understand power of accommodation, just recall whatever you have studied in chapter 10. Consider two lenses in front of you. Question is, suppose I am marking this lens as 1, this lens as 2. First question, which lens is more curved? Compare the two lenses 1 and 2. Question is, which among these lenses more curved or which has more curvature, 1 or 2?
1.
Yeah, it is 1. The lens 1 will be more curved. So more curvature will be for lens 1. Now second question, which lens has more focal length? Which among this lens has more focal length, 1 or 2?
2.
What about others? Every lens can be considered to be part of an imaginary sphere. And if I consider the distance between the center of that sphere to the one of the edges, you will get center of curvature. Now focal length is defined as half of the distance of center of curvature. So with regard to that, think and give the answer. Which among this lens, 1 or 2, have the highest focal length?
1.
Telling 1, let us complete the circle of 1. So if I complete the circle of 1, will it be like this? Now, if this is the center, this distance will be radius of curvature. Half of this distance will be what? Almost at this point. Here, this will be the focal length. But what about lens 2? The lens 2, if I complete the circle will be bigger or smaller compared to 1? The circle is bigger. If bigger, it has center of curvature at this point. You can see the half of the distance is here. So here, first case 1, the focal length is only this much. In the case 2, focal length is this much. Now tell, who has the highest focal length?
2.
Yeah, it is 2. So focal length is highest or maximum for lens number 2, not 1. So understand, there is a relation between curvature and focal length. What is that? More curvature is for lens 1. It is more curved. You can see there is more curvature happening. Here it is less curved. It is almost straight. So more curvature is for lens 1. But focal length is maximum for lens 2. So try to find a relation between focal length and curvature. What is the relation between that? I can conclude curvature is inversely proportional to focal length. This is a very important idea. Curvature of a lens is inversely proportional to focal length. So if you increase the curvature, what will happen to focal length? Focal length will decrease. Whereas if the curvature is less, focal length will be more. Here you can see, here the curvature is more. As a result, this will have less focal length. Whereas here the curvature is less. It will have more focal length. Fine. If a lens has more curvature, here from the figure you can conclude this lens is what? Thicker in nature. Whereas if a lens has less curvature, it is thin. So you can find a relation. If a lens is thicker in nature, it will have less focal length. If a lens is thin in nature, it will have more focal length. And one more thing you can conclude. Can you tell me about the power? Which lens has highest power, 1 or 2?
2.
2.
Wrong. What is the equation for power?
1 by F.
Yeah, 1 by F. So power is same as what? Curvature, 1 by F. If F is more, what will happen to power? It is inversely proportional. Power will decrease. So here this lens has less power, whereas this lens will have more power. Got the idea? This we have already seen in chapter 10. I'm just recalling it. If I compare the two lenses, the first lens is thick in nature. So you can conclude the curvature of first lens is high. If I talk about focal length, it will be less compared to lens number 2, where the curvature is less. It is thin lens. Its focal length is high. Now we know power is inversely proportional to focal length. So I can conclude the power of first lens will be high. Second lens, it will be less. Just keep this idea in mind. Thickness and focal length. Now, your eyes have an ability to change its curvature or change its focal length. Our eye lens, I told, depending on the movement of ciliary muscles, your eye lens can either be thick or thin. This ability to change the focal length, we call it as power of accommodation. What is power of accommodation? It is the ability of our eye lens to change its curvature. And it happens automatically. You don't need to make a conscious effort to change it. No. It happens almost within an instant or fraction of time. So write it down. First, write down the definition. It is the ability of the eye to focus near and distant objects. Due to power of accommodation, you can, in an instant of time, can switch either to a nearby object or a distant object. So that is a benefit of power of accommodation. Write down this statement also. Focal length can be increased or decreased. Lens is thick in nature, focal length is less. If the lens is thin, the focal length is more. Yeah, now let us take an example. Consider if you have a book and a tree in front of you. Now your eyes has a particular feature. It can either focus on the book or on the tree. Now if the book is at your focus, the tree, image of tree will be blurred. Right? You can right away switch. No need of book or tree, anything you can see. Suppose hold your thumb in front of you. Just look at your thumb. Eye focuses on the thumb. Right away, when you switch your concentration to the wall, you can see here the finger becomes blurred. So that happens with the instant of time. Whereas if you have played with camera, if I try to take this picture using a mobile camera, what I need to do? There is a book, there is a tree. In the screen, you have to tap it. So if I tap on the book, what do you see? The book will be the focused image. Whereas if I tap on the tree will be focused. So in camera, you can almost switch manually. That is by tapping the screen. Or if you are familiar with the DSLR, in DSLR for switching the focus, what do? You need to rotate the lens. If I rotate the lens, the focus keeps on changing. But in our eyes, we don't need to do any sort of manual things. It almost happens kind of automatically. This is the second image. Now, if I focus on the tree, you can see the image of the book has been blurred. So this ability of the eye lens to switch over a distant object and nearby object, we call it as power of accommodation, or technically is the ability of the eye lens to change its curvature or focal length. Now we need to see the ray diagram associated with this. You can see when you are focusing on a nearby object, that is a book, the image formation you can see. Whenever the object is at a near distance, the focal length of the eye is less. The focal length of the eye is less. Or I can see the lens is now thick in nature, or it is more curved. As a result, the image will be formed on the retina. Now in the second case, if you focus on the tree, you can see the lens have become thin. When you are focusing on a far away object, you can see the curvature of lens has reduced. It have now become thin. The focal length has been increased. As a result, now you can see the image on the retina. So these are the two mechanisms our eye has to enable vision. That is, it can adjust the focal length. Try to understand, very, very simple thing, but if you understand power of accommodation, you can easily understand how to correct defects of eye. So this is what is happening with reference to power of accommodation. You can note down in flowchart manner itself. When an object is at far distance, last day also I told, the ciliary muscles have two kind of movement, that is relaxation and contraction. So whenever you place an object at a far distance, the ciliary muscles will be in a relaxed state. Now, if the ciliary muscles are in a relaxed state, your eye lens will be thin. Now, if eye lens is thin, what about the focal length? Focal length will be high. And this will enable us to see the distant objects clearly. Very simple thing. When the ciliary muscles are in relaxed state, the eye lens or curvature of the eye lens become thin or less, which increases the focal length and you are able to see the distant object. Whereas the opposite case, the ciliary muscles in contracted state or when the object is at a nearby distance, you can see the eye lens become thick, which enables to decrease the focal length and see the nearby objects. So these are the main two movements of ciliary muscles and eye lens. You must be able to write this in paragraph when asked for exam. So I just represented in flowchart manner. It is easy to remember. Next, due to this power of accommodation, we have two different points. First one is near point of eye. Now, near point, I told when an object is at a nearby distance in front of the eye, you might be able to see it. In this case, I told the lens will be thick. So ciliary muscles will contract and the lens will be thick. But here you need to understand there is a limit. There is a limit to which the ciliary muscles can contract. So thickness can be maximum up to a certain limit. Beyond that, the ciliary muscles cannot apply pressure on the eyes. If it applies, there is no use. So there is a limit up to which eye lens can be in thick state or the ciliary muscles can contract. And due to this, you have a near point. So definition of near point is very simple. It is a minimal distance at which you might be able to see objects clearly. And last point is again important, without any strain. So near point is the minimum distance at which you might be able to see an object without any strain. And if I talk about a normal eye, it is almost about 25 centimeter. Near point for a normal eye is about 25 centimeter. And when I say 25 centimeter, don't think that only you can see up to 25 centimeter. You can see even distance shorter than 25 centimeter. But if you stare at a distance less than 25 centimeter, what will happen? It will cause excess stress or strain on the eye. So that is not good for the life of your eye. So we tend to avoid, or that is why you are advised, don't hold your mobile closer, don't read books holding it very close to the eyes. Always there should be an optimum distance of 25 centimeter because to prevent strain or stress on eye. Now, exact opposite of near point is far point. Now, far point is the farthest point up to which you can see an object clearly. And for a normal eye, it is almost infinity. So understand 2 points, near point, which is 25 centimeter, whereas far point, it is infinity. That is, if you look in the night sky, you can see a star which is lying at a light years away. If you use a telescope, you can see up to a distance that is star lying in the nearby galaxy also. We can conclude far point of a normal eye is at infinity. Now, when you start to age, that is at old age, this smooth transition of near point and far point will find a difficulty. That is, your eye lens will find it difficult to change its focal length. At that time, you may suffer from vision loss. So that is why old age people will have some kind of friction towards this switching of curvature of lens. So they will find some kind of difficulty in their vision. And apart from this, in some other cases, the eye lens, last time I told the eye lens is composed of a protein known as crystalline. In addition to this, in some cases, due to some or the other deposition, the eye lens can be cloudy. And if the eye lens is cloudy in nature, the vision will be blocked. In that condition, it is known as cataract. So next week, you can give the subheading cataract. It is a condition in which your eye lens becomes milky and cloudy. That is inhibiting the proper vision. Now, to correct cataract, you can opt for surgery. There are cataract surgeries available. So if you suffer from cataract, it can lead to partial or complete loss of vision.